The Israel lobby is under fire because of one very successful social media account on X called Track Apac. This might be one of the most influential social media accounts on X. And if you haven't heard of Track Apac, it basically goes after APAC, which is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. It's the largest Israel lobby. It's one of the most influential lobbies in Congress that's bought out all of our politicians. And all this account does, that's been an incredibly successful campaign, is it comments on every politician's post, whether you're left wing or right wing, and it simply shows whether or not they're bought out by APAC. And their efforts have been incredibly successful. Let me just go ahead and share this tab so you can take a look. And they use the exact same infographic, and they'll put the politician's name, and then they'll put exactly how much that politician was bought out by APAC. And APAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee themselves, have gotten very mad about this account because, one thing, politicians aren't allowed to block the Track APAC account. Politicians cannot block U.S. citizens from their own political accounts. So because of the fact that they can't block those accounts, then APAC will comment, and I'm pretty sure they have an automated system where whenever a politician tweets, they immediately respond. They either that or they have like a team of 50 or something just going at it one after another because they are really on top of it. And because politicians can't block the account, everybody just sees it and they just know, okay, this politician's bought out this much, this politician is bought out by this much. So recently, the exchange started on Thursday on X with APAC Tracker urging FARA registration due to U.S. aid to Israel toppling $21.7 billion since October 2023, and pro-Israel donations to politicians like Senator John Cornyn. APAC rejected the accusations as lies, stressing its 6 million American supporters and focusing on strength, security through alliance, yada, yada, yada. FARA requires disclosure for foreign agents influencing U.S. policy, but APAC isn't registered. The debate highlights tensions over lobbying transparency, and this is what Track APAC has been doing on a lot of APAC's posts, simply stating APAC's mission is to steer U.S. policy towards Israel, functioning as a coordinated extension of Israeli interests. FARA doesn't prohibit lobbying, it requires openness. It's time for APAC to register as a foreign agent. APAC, their actual account, responded back saying 6 million Americans, Democrats, Independents, and Republicans are members of APAC. We are veterans, farmers, doctors, parents, teachers, and others, Americans who stand for a strong U.S.-Israel partnership, proud, unapologetic, unbreakable. So here's the thing. This branding of APAC saying, we're Democrats, Republicans, we're farmers, doctors, yada, yada, yada. This is brand new. This is brand new for APAC. This has not been their branding up until this past year, and it's their branding as of this past year because they're on the defense. Prior to this, all it was focusing on was the U.S.-Israel relationship and how Israel and America together make them stronger. It never focused on the fact that it is an American organization, which it has American citizens working on behalf of a foreign country. So it really shouldn't matter whether these are millions of American citizens. They're American citizens working on behalf of a foreign country. Here's the thing. If Chinese Americans, so they're ethnically Chinese, think about this. If Chinese Americans came together and they said, we are going to create a lobbying group that works for the interests of the People's Republic of China, of the CCP, the Communist Party of China, and we are going to influence U.S. policy towards China, would they register as a foreign agent? Now, wait a second. Now, if you think, well, they're American citizens and ultimately they want to sway U.S. policy towards China, that's their decision. Well, what if I told you then that they have an office in Shanghai and they work with Chinese officials? Would you say, okay, well, now it's starting to seem kind of weird, right? I don't think that there should be a lobbying group for a foreign country with ties to their foreign officials. That seems kind of weird. Well, that's exactly what Track APAC. That's exactly what APAC is. It's the American Israel Public Affairs Committee with an office in Jerusalem that meets with Israeli officials. It meets with Israeli officials. APAC officials meet with Israeli officials. Once they meet with Israeli officials, Israeli officials like Netanyahu will tell them which policies benefit Israel. They will then come back to the United States. And when they come back to the United States, they go ahead and start pushing politicians to push forward those policies. That's what APAC does. APAC works for the benefit of a foreign country. Now, I've done a lot of deep dives. Actually, I've done it as a TikTok. I'm going to go ahead and do it as a YouTube video here shortly, maybe sometime next week. And people should know that John F. Kennedy was fighting with the Israeli lobby to register as a foreign agent. APAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, had a predecessor called the American Zionist Council. And the American Zionist Council was forced to register under FARA, the Foreign Agents Registration Act. John F. Kennedy was fighting with the American Zionist Council to register under FARA. They refused. John F. Kennedy had his administration, the Department of Justice, fight with the American Zionist Council and require them to register and tell them they had to register 7 times. 7 times. All of these documents are available publicly. I'm going to make a full video on it, but just so that way, if you guys are interested and you want to see these documents, go to the IsraeliLobby.org. I'm going to do this here right now with you guys to show you how messed up this is. So you're going to go to the IsraeliLobby.org. Of course, right now is when my internet wants to be slow. So let me go ahead and do it again. And when you go there, you're going to be able to see all of the documents of Track Apac, or of the Israeli lobby. There we go. Oh, weird. IsraeliLobby.org now took too long to respond. All right, guys. Well, my Wi-Fi is bad, but you can go to the IsraeliLobby.org and you'll be able to pull up the actual PDF documents from the Israeli lobby fighting with JFK's administration at the time. And they were going back and forth. And the Department of Justice ordered the Israeli lobby, the Zionist Council, to register as a foreign agent. They refused. And then 2 weeks later, JFK is assassinated. And when Lyndon B. Johnson becomes president, all of that pressure is lifted and it's all magically gone. Kind of annoyed now that this website is not loading for me. Did I spell it wrong? Let me see here. Israeli lobby. They're always under attack, so I feel like we'll see. Well, anyways, I'll have the videos. I'll have the PDFs pulled up for you guys at a different day. Maybe it works on your computer. Try it out. And that's kind of where we're at now. So separate from that, what most people don't know is that the APAC officials actually were charged with treason. They were charged with treason in the early 2000s because they were stealing U.S. confidential State Department information and sending it to Israel. This is fact. And guess what? When that happened, all of the charges were dropped later on. If you guys don't know about this, it's the Lawrence Franklin scandal. Lawrence Franklin APAC scandal. I'm going to pull up a document on this. It's pretty crazy. He was once an Israeli spy, and he was charged with sharing secrets to APAC, and then APAC would send those secrets over to Israel. And here's the espionage charges. Let me go ahead and share my screen so you guys can see this article. U.S. government to drop espionage charges against APAC officials. This article is now more than 16 years old, of course, and the U.S. government dropped the charges because of the pressure by the Israel lobby and by politicians that are bought out by Israel to have them drop the charges. Steve Rosen and Keith Wiseman accused of providing U.S. defense secrets to Israeli embassy in Washington. How crazy is that? The U.S. government is to drop espionage charges against 2 officials of America's most powerful pro-Israel lobbying group accused of spying for the Jewish state because court rulings had made the case unwinnable and the trial would disclose classified information. Court rulings made unwinnable, and the trial would disclose classified information. That is one of the reasons why they're not charging them, because of the fact it would disclose classified information, not because of the fact that they're innocent. Get that? You get that? Of course, whenever you want to make Israel look innocent, for some reason, they always have to say the Jewish state. Instead of just saying for Israel, they have to say the Jewish state. Because I feel like when you say the Jewish state, you make it sound like it's just the only one. So I feel like that journalists think that by writing it in that way, it gains a sense of sympathy for just being a singular one, even though this has to do with espionage. Kind of weird. And the article goes on and says the 2 accused, Steve Rosen, Stephen Rosen worked for the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, and they were accused of providing defense secrets to the chief political officer at the Israeli embassy in Washington about U.S. policies towards Iran and al-Qaeda, in league with a former Pentagon analyst who has since been jailed for 12 years. This honestly deserves an entire story. I'm going to actually make an entire video on this on my own. And here's the Israel Lobby Archive talking about it again. I don't know why their website is down. That's so weird. Maybe it's just on my computer. But anyways, so this is that's kind of what's going on. So it's not really an American lobbying group if it's working on behalf of a foreign country. If it was an American lobbying group, then in situations where something negatively impacted Israel but benefited America, then it would choose to do what's in the best interest of America. But even in those cases, it's doing things that are in the best interests of Israel. So clearly, it's a foreign agent. It doesn't matter if you're an American citizen. You're working on behalf of a foreign country. It should be pretty basic understanding, but apparently that's not the case. We did have a president that knew that and that worked towards having them register. And of course, like I said, poor guy was assassinated and that never happened. So that's where we're at in the United States of America. If you found this video interesting, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. It helps me do more and more of these videos for you guys. And please go ahead and subscribe. It helps me out. Otherwise, I will see you guys here.